All right, everybody. Hey, guess what? I know we've had quite a bit of a vacation, time without Ed. So now that you realize that when Ed talks, your ears start ringing, and this whole time without him, your ears will stop ringing. Guess what? We're going to start it up again. Um, One of the things I want to start out with first, before
Go
we
ahead. You had an opening. Go for it.
start with disclaimers by Ed Johnston, is hold on. I got to make sure that the video is going and showing me red here. So let me see. I have to change a few settings.
Hmm.
All right, now we're going to try it again. Sorry, folks, technical difficulties. I've been trying to increase the video, but with a very low internet quality, I can't have it as high as I want to be able to put all the detail out there. So, but as I was saying, Ed's back after a long vacation, hospital vacation. You know, that's where all the old folks like to go and love the food and
Thanks.
stuff. But I did want to mention something with everybody who's been watching knows that the Mueller report got questioned by both Democrats and Republicans, and Mueller was pretty much put on the hot seat during that time. And a lot of people see that he was saying it's not in my purview. He made a mistake of who hired him for a position. Was it Bush or Reagan? You know what? Some when people get older in life and they deal with so much information, their brain cannot just grab information like that. It takes a bit, and whenever they're firing questions at you, even a 30-year-old would have trouble getting exact things every single time. But he is older, he's had a lot of information going through him. Now, I'm not saying that he should be free of any wrongdoing, because I personally think he was just a figurehead, and he really did not deal with the report hardly at all. But he did have multiple investigation teams underneath him, and they did a lot of stuff and helped put together the Mueller report. Basically, his name's on it, but it doesn't mean he knew every dot and cross the T and dot the I.
Probably he didn't even know half the stuff or most of the stuff that was written because one of his other aides wrote it for him.
Well, that's what you have aides for, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's the whole point. When you do that, you don't even know what they're talking about in your own paperwork.
Well, whenever you've got over a 400-page document, you're thinking not many people are going to read that, because most of the House and Senate don't even bother reading any of the bills that come through. They're just like, okay, what do you think of it? Okay, we'll vote for it, or we'll didn't go against it. But
Well, don't forget, like Nancy Pelosi would always say, we got to vote on it and get it passed before we can read it.
yeah, that's because most of them don't know how to read. But as I was saying on Mueller, it's really simple, guys. Yes, he's in a very high position. He had a very important job to do, and he slightly messed up, or majorly messed up, whichever your opinion is. But remember this: he is as old as Trump is. He has had a lot of pressure put on him, and he is not at the top of everything. He is basically a middleman or an upper management. He's in management right now. He's not in charge like what Trump appears to be, and he hasn't been in charge. Yeah, he's got people that he answers to, and the most important thing is he served in the military. He was a Marine for quite a few automatically respect him at least for that. His brain's not going to be perfect like it was when he was 20 or 30 or even 40. Because as you get older and as you eat all the GMOs and the HEK 293 that they put in most of our foods,
Mhm.
and you basically are destroying your body, your brain basically becomes solidified and you just follow orders. That's one of the main things.
Mhm.
But
Oh, well, I had to add something to that. Don't forget all these people that whine and bitch about, what did I call that, abortion? When they lie, cheat, and steal. And not only that, when it comes to drinking soda pop and all the foods they bite, they have the baby products in it, but they'll sit there and bitch on the street corner, but they sure will still eat the baby.
well, it's because
They,
it tastes good. That's what HEK is for. Human embryonic kidney, number 293.
mm-hmm,
A 14-week-old white, white male kidney cell. That's what HEK is, and it is put as a flavor enhancer in a lot of
mm-hmm,
our commercially produced foods.
mm-hmm.
So you may be against abortion, but you're enjoying eating the babies that were aborted. So hypocrisy's everywhere, but people don't know it because they don't want to know it. They love their Pepsi, Mountain Dew, uh, chocolate chip
Mm-hmm.
cookies, Doritos, and everything like that. But back to Mueller. Yes, he has a very important position. Yes, he has a very important job. Yes, he should know quite a bit about what his name is on. But again, he is human. That means he's an animal, and animals don't really think very clearly whenever they get old. They just go off of instinct.
Well, not only that, the one thing that gets to me about it, it came out he never registered under the 1938 Foreign Administration Registration Act. And that's the one thing all public employees have to. And you figure in his position, he would know better. But what I'm finding out is a lot of public employees are saying, we don't have to register. We don't have to follow the law because we are the law. And that's the one thing that, folks, you've got to come to reality is you are the law. The treaties and the Constitution are the law. Your Bible and your religion has nothing to do with law. That's from a foreign country. Those are not American papers. They're not from this country. They were brought into this country, raped, robbed, and murdered the native men and women and children.
Now, there's an interesting
So,
point there, Ed. Now, you said the
huh,
treaties and the Constitution are the law, right?
right, of the law of this land. That's of the
Okay.
48 states.
What's the first three words of the Constitution?
Oh, well, why don't you elaborate?
First three words of the Constitution are "We the people." So if the
Mm-hmm.
Constitution is the law of the land, that means we the people are the law of the land.
Not only that, if you follow the Constitution and the treaties, that means only native-born men and women. That's five or more generations, and that was even in the structure of the 14th Amendment. And if you actually read the Dred Scott case, it actually says the lower C and the small c, and they changed everything to the citizen or the resident.
Oh, that's a good question there, Ed. In your personal opinion, if they managed to do the "Are you a United States citizen?" question on the census that was there before the Democrats decided to take it out, what should a native's answer be? Say, "I'm a native,"
I'm a bloodline native to the soil.
and if they say, "Well, that's not in my check mark," put "other," and then write in what I told you.
What you suggested. You can't tell anybody what to do. You could always suggest.
Well, if they're working for the government, then they are our servants.
Well, that's true too, but that's the other point. Why would anybody fill out a census? Because the only ones required are elected and public employees, registered church members, and legal immigrants.
Well, the problem
Natives are
is,
not required, and that's by federal law.
problem is, most of those who are listening to this and are opening their eyes don't realize they're probably still a registered church member, even if it was like 20 or 30 years ago that they
Oh
applied
yeah.
to a church. They keep those records no matter what, as long as possible. They may give you a, oh, well, you haven't been to church in long enough time, so you're not a member anymore, but they'll keep you in the registry, and that is something you have to track down and fix. Otherwise,
Hmm.
they can get your ass on that. But Ed, tell you what,
Wait a minute. I
today,
want to add one other point to this that people need to pay attention to. A lot of people, when they go to church, they end up giving what they call a donation, and but a lot of people write a check for a donation. So when you write that check, your Social Security and IRS number is registered for the state as a corporation member. So every time that you put a check in, unless you put your native structure on that check, you're giving your rights back to the state to run you. And see, this is how they keep that loop going, where people go, oh, well, it's a loophole. Well, actually, it's not a loophole. See, it's either you know your rights or you don't. There's no loopholes in the structure. The only loopholes were created by attorneys, lawyers, and judges. And we can't forget the terrorizing organization called American Civil Liberties Union. And if you do the history on that one, they were founded by the American Bar Association. I believe it was October 21, 1878.
well,
And they are registered to the Queen of England and work for the Pope and the Vatican. All the lawyers and attorneys do.
hmm,
And I get attorneys all the time that tell me, we don't do that. And it pisses me off because if they are successful in a case, they refuse to go after for the injured party, for the property damage or the insurance money, or to defend them so that way they get compensated. Once they get a case dismissed, they walk away. We got her $5,000, $10,000, up to $100,000, depends on the size of the so-called case. And that's the only thing that really pisses me off is that they're still not protecting, even by their oath. And that's the one thing I want to get into tonight, dealing with your property rights. Because you got to realize an attorney is not there to protect you. I haven't seen one that's been there to protect an individual. And when I filed my paperwork and a couple legal stuff that I've gone through, I watched a totally different change come from these attorneys. This is the one thing too. Even when I filed with the hospital, I even put the structure on my medical chart and the so-called email, because their emails, they're not confidential in the medical charts. So I put the email and I sent the doctor the stuff on the babies, the birth certificates, and they're calling me up going, well, Ed, what is this, and how can we help you with this? And I said, what do you mean help me? I'm just proving I'm telling you the truth, that I know the game. This is the one thing they don't want to know it, because they want to still live in this fantasy called Disneyland. These video games, their little terminology, even religion. And everybody keeps going, Ed, you're so hard on religion. I am, because it comes from a foreign country. And all these people pray and nothing gets done. And then they have you go pray to the men and women. It's like I have judges that I've talked to and preachers, and they say, we the judges and the ministers are one and the same. We both work for God. See, this is the point that when it comes down to this stuff, listen. And quit trying to interpret it of what people are thinking or saying to you. And don't interpret things, because a lot of people, we have been indoctrinized so terribly. Because when things are brought up on TV or commercials, then you question it instead of knowing it. And so this is what we get. We question things instead of going with our knowledge or knowing something's fact. It's like the color red. It's red. It's not blue, pink, purple. You can make other colors out of red, but the original color is red. So when people sit there and they try to make these things up as they go along or saying it's beneficial, I mean, it's like with family. If your family is not there for you, that actually care and love for you, they're not there for you. I mean, you get family members that are always sitting there, preaching how rich they are. In fact, when they don't have a penny, they're living for paycheck to paycheck and credit card to credit card. But they call that rich. And so this would have an effect on your property taxes. This has an effect on your interest rates. Now, I mean, I'm paying a ridiculous rate of so-called property tax in my area for a little chunk of land, or soil, technically, it was filed. And so I'm battling them right now over it. And so I learned a couple of new techniques that opened my eyes up, and that's what I'm getting ready to file on, which I will be making public next week, because I'll have them filed and emailed, and we'll make it public, and you go through it. And I've already done that with a couple other things. But I learned, you file on them. You file for their budget. They're going to panic. You file for their VIN numbers, their serial numbers called Social Security numbers. And see, by law, servants are supposed to provide that to us. But they're saying they don't have to now. Now, see, we're living in a day of Nazism, and wake up to this socialism you are really living in, and quit living in your fantasy Disney fairy tale of unicorns. Because you go and ask a public servant, and if you don't get what you want, and they give you the runaround, so that way they don't have to deal with you, and they can put you off, and we get that. Now, the one thing I've done is I'm filling out the paperwork that I got from the Department of Justice. So I'm going after my city's budget. So, and that's the whole point is going after it, filing it, and not writing what they want. You read these questions that they send you very carefully, because these things are worded in such a way to put you in basically a guilty plea bargain situation for them. And so what I'm doing is I'm not answering their questions the way they want it. I'm denied this. I don't have that information to provide because they refuse to give me those numbers. See, they're asking for numbers that, they can't legally ask for. So I'm responding back to them going, here's the numbers. Here's what I'm denied. This is why you need to do your job. And see, they don't want to do it because police departments actually have been closed around the country because of how this is done. And then the other terminology, excuse me, that I've been listening to is everybody keeps going after this big money value on these cops who assault them and do all this stuff. You write the criminal charges, then you take them to small claims court. They lose in small claims court, you get the money, $5,000, but mandatorily they're fired. Their career is done. So we got to go on different tactics on some of this stuff to become winners. I've been involved with $500 million lawsuits, and even the state of Oregon that won. And I never got paid out of it because people go, we won, but we're so scared to go get the money. And I'm like, then what the hell did I spend 2 or 3 years fighting a case for you? And then we get to the point where we win, and you're not going to go get the ducats or, whatever credits you want to call them. See, this is the saddest part about people out there today. There's no men and women. They're all wimps. See, and there's very few times you can find a real man out there who's one to stand up, but everybody's worried about causing a ruckus and raising structures to have their family personally attacked. I personally know that. I mean, not only did I have my family ripped apart by the local government and Governor Kate Brown, I had my family conspired with them, directly with them, to destroy my family. So, I mean, when people say, well, you don't know what you're talking about, Ed, I've been there, I lived it, I have the reports, and I mean, at one point there used to be hundreds of pages about me in court cases, and newspaper articles. We going after the system, recalling school boards, proving fraud. But it's like what they're doing right now is they're changing the Constitution paperwork on the internet. When you go and type the 1846 Constitution in, Oregon State original paperwork, it says that they can't tax you. But now they've doctored it and changed it to, tax with representation. That never damn said it. See, this is what gets to me about how stupid people are. They do what they're told. I don't want to raise a ruckus. I might be audited. I mean, I've had relatives say, well, the only reason why you've never been audited is because, you don't make a certain amount. Well, it doesn't matter, and I have. But the bottom line is knowing the damn law. The Constitution and the treaties. And the treaties, and that's what I'm getting ready to file on the city here pretty soon again. Indians can't be taxed. See, I mean, when I'm filing this paperwork, I got to file 5 paperwork in one deal. This is what I'm realizing, that when you file, your administrative rules and you file this, you file everything. You don't wait 2 or 3 weeks for the response. You file everything, and you make them start sweating. Somebody's going to respond. See, this is the point, that we want people to start responding. It's interesting because I've been involved in, even some recent court cases, and it really amazes me because these people don't want to stand up for their children. They don't want to stand up for their rights. They got all these other gurus out there, and, they're following these gurus, but nobody's writing criminal charges on the people that did it to them. See, a doctor, a lawyer, judge, clerk, even doctors are all public employees, folks. Anybody who's contracted for the Elected and Public Employees Union is a government employee, and they're contractors. I post this stuff up. I send people out the administrative rules, the WAS. It's like I tell people, read Title V, what a cop can and cannot do. See, and that's the one thing you need to file on the cop for his home, his job. Treason. Under Title V, they're supposed to take a note to the Constitution. They don't do that. Even Oregon State law have discretion for Oregon State police, and local police are supposed to take a note to the Constitution of 1846, but they changed that in their paperwork, so they're going by a corporation constitution. But you have to know this to write it in. It's like I was talking to a couple people the last couple of days, and I'm like, well, they left some stuff out of their paperwork, and I said, well, why didn't you write it? Well, they're supposed to know this. And I'm like, so you're putting it so they're supposed to know this, so now you're leaving the door open for them to ignore your whole letter because you never proved the point. So when you assume, like I said to a gentleman just a few hours ago, I said, so when you assume, explain to me what the ass is. And it's like, and he starts thinking, and I said, no, you wonder why you haven't been getting paperwork, because you keep writing this stuff as an open door for them to ignore you. And so you have to put your paperwork together in a fashion where they can't ignore you. You're putting it in a response. I'm asserting my rights under the Freedom of Information Act of this, that, and the other thing. And when you do a Freedom of Information Act, always include progress notes. I don't care if it's your doctor, your lawyer, your mommy and daddy. You want progress notes, they have to put them in the system. And that means progress notes for everything, including medical. They even write progress notes in their medical records. And so you got to realize this stuff. People say, well, they got the medical records online. That's protected. No, it's not, folks. That's why I'm very blunt with my medical issues. And I'm going to be putting up my lawsuit here that I had with the state of Oregon, which the state dismissed my $35 million lawsuit. It's interesting when you get your life threatened by these public employees. And trust me, I have. Guns shoved to my head. I mean, pulled over, supposedly crossing over a line. Pulled over just to have a chat with me of where I was going. See, I mean, and that's the point that, we can't live in fear, so that's why you need to file your charges. So it's like, I got to fill out this other paperwork and file it on the city. I'm going after these people. They don't have a right to family. I don't have a right to family, so they don't have a right to family. It's like somebody said to me the other day, well, don't you have compassion and forgiveness? Well, I said to him, very simple. Your God forgives. That's the way you believe. See, not everybody believes in this fantasy, this one world fantasy. They're going, we should live under one world. No, our forefathers put it up so the 48 states were able to live, pass their bloodline down. We need the damn wall up so that way when everybody becomes vampires, what do they call that? Zombies off of the medication and eating human food, because they do eat human food. There's a lot of human food in the meat structure around the world today. You have to be careful of that. You could even type in human food and sold in grocery stores. You'll be amazed what comes up, what's grounded in some of your food. And then, people are sitting there going, well, that doesn't happen. Well, denial is a wonderful thing if you live in fantasy. And then you wonder why your health, and, we have all these diseases. Diseases are man-made diseases. The whole thing is about money. How do I build a straw man account? How can I raise the national debt? Remember, national debt is the British debt that owes the natives. That's the 1933 Bankruptcy Act. That's why House Resolution 192 was created to lawful natives to write it off. When you read this stuff intensely, it's catching the actual words of what it says in it, that most people, when you read this stuff, they just skip over it. Even the state of Oregon has exempt for property taxes, and that goes back to the Treaty of 1846. Yes, we know we have politicians or judges and lawyers that rape, rob, and pillage for their living. But pointing it out, getting it out there. And we got people doing it, but everybody's out there sitting and raising some religious flag. What the hell is religion going to do for anybody? Sorry if you take it personal that way, but think about it. You have to go back to the paperwork. Everything's based on a piece of paper, not fantasy. Our forefathers put the Constitution and the structure with the treaties, the native treaties together, so hopefully we were intelligent enough down the road to comprehend this stuff, to open our minds to look at both sides of the coin here. That's like the 14th Amendment. Oh, you have the right to vote. Well, hey, I lost 2 elections actually was written in the papers by dead voters. Dead voters voted, and that was acceptable in Oregon. Well, I've been on hundreds of talk shows about this stuff over the last 25 years, 30 years. And it's very disturbing that these things happen. So when it comes down to your property right, if you're paying property taxes, you are a tenant. If you claim you're a resident, that means you're a resident of D.C., Washington, D.C., Columbia. And remember, downtown New York City is part of the Vatican, not part of the United States. Even Trump knows that. And, when you keep yourself as a resident or an immigrant or, an immigrant, you have no choice until you're the 5th generation. And I'm watching people that have been filing paperwork and they're getting caught up in this stuff and they're getting caught with their lies. And then they're wondering why people are being shipped out. Hello? You know, you don't have a right to come to this country and claim your freedom or sanctions. We're not here for freedom and sanctions for immigrants. We are here to protect the bloodline of the future generations of this soil. And it's a shame that most people don't comprehend this, what they're doing to their own family by turning their back on it. And then they wonder why their bloodline diminishes. See, once your bloodline is gone, you're done. Nobody's going to talk about you. You're dead. You're history. Nobody cares. That's a reality. Nobody gives a damn. So when we're here right now today and dealing with the structure of our rights, learning the Constitution and the treaties, learning administrative rules, how they affect our livelihood. You know, it's like people say, I always love when people say, well, don't you pay your taxes? What taxes? Your taxes don't stay in this country. I mean, when you pay even property taxes, they don't stay in this country. You pay your water bill. That money doesn't stay in this country. They ship it out. It goes into Federal Registry Bank. I mean, I've done this stuff. I've brought this up. You know, so, and we're going to have roughly a deal, but when it comes to property taxes, it's based on residential, industrial, or agricultural. Why would you register yourself as one of those three? Because then you're saying, well, I'm going to pay the king or the queen, you know, an evidence check or whatever my livelihood is. And that's the whole point. And that's where it goes into the national debt. And then the national debt is called the British government, the Vatican, the church. And it would be nice when people start doing this and stand up amongst each other. So, and that's the one thing. You want your property classified as private soil, not private land, because, you know, land is 10 feet above your head, and that's air. You want soil. Soil grows food. Land is just a tax write-off. And when it comes down to putting all this stuff together, it does take a time to comprehend, read this, but always make sure you file it with the clerk of the court and the clerk of your city, county, and state. Because the duty of a clerk has to file your paperwork, and if they don't file it, you file criminal charges on them. Not only with the state attorney general, but Washington, D.C., and you go after their license. You go after their livelihood, because that's what they're doing to you. When you pay property taxes, income tax, state income tax, they're coming after you. Liability, they want you to pay their freedom, because you're giving them money for them to be free, rape, rob, and pillage. You're giving them more money to rape children than you think you are. Every time you pay these taxes, you're giving them money to rape women and children. Some men. But usually it's women and children that get raped more than men do. You know, because most men wouldn't tolerate it, and they'll just go after life. So that's just the way that is. But your property tax, when you pay it, that means you're a tenant. And so that's the one thing, when you do this, you go after the federal IRS, and you ask them to prove where the money is. And that's what I'm doing right now. And that's what I recommend everybody doing. You know, I want them to prove the taxes. I want them to prove the circumstances. So, and I know these guys are freaking out by the letters and the response I'm getting by, you know, especially the IRS I got, because I got from the State Department of Justice for the IRS division. So when I put this letter together, I'm writing the IRS administrative rules in it. And this is the one thing that you've got to clarify these things. When you write this, you have to clarify the department. And if you have an employee's number, always use the employee's name. And if you ask her for their identification, their employee identification number, or something like that, they don't give it. Put it in writing. See, if it's not in writing, it's hearsay. So don't leave yourself open, and that's what they want. They lie, cheat, and steal. This is bad, and I hate to say it. There are some good Christians out there who claim they're Christians, but the average Christian rapes, robs, and steals anyways, especially business owners. What do? It's only business. Screw the family, screw the family members, and screw the neighborhood. It's only business. See, that's called the British terminology. Until a few years back, you didn't pay for condiments on the, table and stuff. Now a lot of companies are charging you for the condiments, charging you for the cup. When you go to the grocery store, a lot of places are charging you for a plastic bag or paper bag. Of course, remember, that's already been included in the price increase they've done for the last 40 years. So now they're getting more money off of the paper and plastic bags. Oh, it's going to cost you a nickel. It only costs them 2 cents at the most to even have it delivered to the store. But then again, it's already written off in the product when you buy it. Every product has that. Every bag that's given out for every one product is in every product. So when you think that you got 20 things in a bag or something like that, you already paid $1 for that bag. Then they're going to charge you a nickel on top of it. But, when you step out and you look how this business world actually works compared to what we think it does. People go, well, I have a business, I got to charge this rate. Okay. And then the thing is that most of them do commercial rates for commercial versus home rates or business rates, especially the public employees, and they do bidding process, and that's another thing that, every time a public, for a business contract for public employees, they always add 30 to 40% on it, above and beyond. Everybody does that. For a nickel for a washer that costs a nickel, they charge you 35 cents. That's the way business works, How much can I pass on? And if people say, it's only business, I love it when family members say, it's only business. And especially when you're not participating or take part of what they call business. That's why there's people out there who have nothing to do with their family. You just don't need it. Sometimes your family could be your worst nightmare and you don't even know it until you wake up and see the truth. And it's really sad the way our public employees work and how they even conspire with family members. Of course, family members are the same way, too. We'll do that with public employees. Oh, we're saving you. Especially when you got people, and then when anybody calls on, what I call that, a health and safety check, you make sure you file charges on that cop who comes to your door. Because if you don't, you're leaving the door open for them to come anytime. That's a real reality, folks. So it's coming down to the real reality of what's going on. This ain't like the world ain't, and this country ain't like it was 25 years ago. 30 years ago when there was a respect and honor, there's no respect and honor. Even in most families don't even have respect and honor today. They say they do, but then they're out there stealing and lying and cheating. So you can't have honor if you're doing a con. And look up what a con is legally. You might be amazed what you start learning. So when it comes down to your property tax, even the state of Oregon, has a deal, that you have rights. And I'll be posting it up on the YouTube channel, and it's posted on our Facebook sites. And if not, we'll have it up on the website pretty soon. But we want to make sure you guys get this information and read it. So when you're filing your claims, and when it comes to, before you get foreclosed on, file it now. File that you want to see the bank statements. File you want the bank. Oh, the jail phone calls. Remember the jail phone call structure? That's a private corporation who owns that. We have a right to that information. Your jail cell is a private corporation. I mean, until 1993, we never even had a jail in our county. We had a couple of drunk tanks in the city. But if there was a major crime, they always had to ship them to Salem. And since they put this courthouse in, they're draining out billions of dollars out of this county. The bankers are having a hell of a heyday. Remember, banks are not American owned. And I don't give a damn what anybody tells me. I'm an American bank. That's bullshit. If they're an American bank, let's see their assets. And let's see the native men and women who own the bank. Not foreigners. You want these men and women to prove that they're doing business for your country, not for foreign agents. And all attorneys and judges have to register as foreign agents. And see, your attorneys and your judges tell you, no, we don't. And I've got this on YouTube videos that says we don't have to do this. I got to remember, in the state of Oregon, nobody goes by the law, not even the cops, judges, even the state attorney general. And Kate Brown doesn't give a goddamn ass about anybody. She really doesn't. She sold her soul to Hillary Clinton back in 1993. I mean, it's interesting when you sit around and you watch what's going on in the hallways up at the Capitol. You get to learn a lot of things. You really get to learn a lot of things. And then when you try to explain to people, everybody goes, oh, that wouldn't happen. That couldn't happen. That's the thing that always gets to me when people say, that can't happen. And then it happens, and then they want to live in denial. They can't believe it happened. So this is the problem we're having with the property taxes. So I will be getting this information out. I'll get my city, when I'm filing on the city, so we'll get that up so you can actually read this stuff. And we have a lot that's on new.org and trackers, and we can, I thank God, man, who's keep putting stuff up there because it protects all of our asses. Yes, it costs me quite a bit to run this stuff because, I pay for the website and everything out of my pocket. So, and that's the one thing, I haven't, everybody says, oh, we're going to help this cause or that cause. It's amazing how people talk. Even me and the madman could even admit to that because we've heard that from many people, and we haven't seen anything. But see, I don't give a damn about that. I give a damn about my home. I give a damn about the admin. When it comes down to it, why should I care about you? Because you're not out there standing in the street corner, standing there with your paperwork, claiming who you are, making your standing. People say that you don't have to file this paperwork and you don't have to do that and take your court to this way. And that's the one thing that always gets to me about the way people, and I watch a lot of these gurus. And you watch these gurus, and it's so simple to have a case dismissed. I want to see these so-called gurus. Let's see the court cases they won and the money they received. I've been after that for 15 years for these people. Oh, we won the court case. Oh, I've won a lot of court cases. Okay? It's just the way you file the paperwork. And I file it different than most because I go after these public employees. I go after their homes, their assets. But we have to file a claim. Now, I want criminal charges because let me explain the federal rules of procedure for you. If you don't have a court case and a winning court case is on them, you cannot go after a claim. And if you win in the small claims court, hey, you won a small claims. Now you can go after the big dollars. See, it's learning how the procedure works and how to go and use the court system for our advantage. We're trying to get people to educate themselves to do this or work with you so that way they win. And then even recently I had a couple of cases that won. I don't expect to see anything out of it because, I watch people's attitude. All of a sudden, when they win, they forget the people that were involved in their court cases, or the ones who wrote it for them, or was in part that gave them the ideas and suggestions. But see, I don't care about that one when it comes down to it. And please don't tell me God's there and you're doing a good work for God, because we're God. Who's God? Why is your God better than my God? My God is just as powerful as your God. My God is called the Constitution and the treaty. I'm not going by a fake book. I'm going by facts that are there to protect our 48 states, native bloodline. Without native bloodline, there's no country. That's why the wall is so important to be built. And then people say, well, Canadians really, they don't jump the border to come here because they don't want to come to this crazy shit that's going on in this country. Don't you pay attention to what goes on even in their media? I mean, Trudeau, look what he's done. Look at, Canadians are up in arms right now over Trudeau. Even the French ambassador is speaking against this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. That's why until we start protecting the bloodline in this country, there's no future. And you get Warren and all these people. I call these senators all the time in their office and tell them how they do it. I got another letter I'll be sending to Warren, too, for treason. But you file this stuff so it goes in the record. And then it goes in a congressional record. And those things speak up, because then when they go for re-election, you'll have some organization bring that up for you. And then that way it's not you, it's them. And that's the one thing you got to learn, that you don't want to be a target to the game here. You want to live your life in peace. That's what I would love to have done. So, but they made my decision for me. So that's why I'm fighting this stuff, putting this stuff out. So by federal law, they can't take your land for property taxes. But you have to file for yourself as a bloodline native. Now, I mean, I've done this. I got letters I filed with Kitzhaber when he was governor, Kate Brown. Yes. I mean, these people are, like, ignoring some of this stuff. They haven't responded to most of it, and now all of a sudden I got a response on things that I'm filling out paperwork. So, and people say, well, the system doesn't work. We already know the system don't work. But how is it going to work unless you help the cause by filing your paperwork? See, if everybody turns their back on this circumstances with property state taxes, and not having the Vatican taking the liability and the Queen of England taking the liability that they are obligated to do, because they're the ones who put out the Federal Reserve notes, not the United States Treasury, because if you look at the United States Treasury, who owns it? The Vatican. It's a fact. Title 18, 32002. Corporation. Corporation is run and owned by the Vatican. And even though that the last filing was done in Florida, and it's up now, but I haven't seen a new filing, but we know the Vatican ain't going to leave a door open like that. So they got to file it somewhere. So we got to get that information. But you got to remember that these people are relying on you to go crawl on your hands and knees and pray to something and ask forgiveness for the people that are destroying your family, that are getting paid by the Vatican to destroy your family. So, we got to create a job here. We're going to pray to save something. Yes, I'm hard on this stuff. I never believed in this stuff, and I've had it proven to me more and more all the time. So when it comes down to your structure, you have to look at it as your structure. You have to learn the administrative rules. And when these people start going after you, don't forget the other point is that when you write your paperwork, it's cruel and inhumane treatment to animals. That's Title 1, 3241. And don't forget, oh, that's right, Title I, Section 8, they changed the structure from monster to child and human now. I don't remember seeing that ever being brought up to be voted on. They just changed it because Title I, Section 8 means a child is a monster. And it says human is an inanimate object. But they're changing these administrative rules left and right. They got people that are paid daily to do this stuff. And you get the paperwork. That's why it's so apparent to say paperwork. That's why they came in and unloaded cases of paperwork out of my home. So my family said, once you're dead, we just got to throw it in the garbage. We don't give a shit. True, they don't give a shit about this country. So it's really frustrating we live in a time this way where people only care about themselves, self-centered. And if you're one of those families that gets involved and going to try to tell somebody else how to live in a relationship, may the Creator rise of hell in your life that you're causing somebody else's life. Because without life and happiness, there's nothing in this life. We could all be depressed and lonely and play all this game, but that's just a trauma that has been developed by religion to do that to yourself and us. I mean, come on. All religions, everybody's got to dictate in the family member how they're going to live, who they're doing with, who's their friends. That ain't humanity. That's slavery. Religious slavery, and we're still living it. So it gets so disturbing when we go through this. And so when it comes down to, your taxes, file on them. We want to make sure it's public. My medical records, I'm getting ready. I'll be posting some of my medical records shortly on the website. I'm going to show you what I filed in court. I've got 2 broken necks, 19 blown discs, crushed back, all this stuff. It's a reality. It's not fiction. So I'll be sending that, posting that up. You can read my medical records. They say, quit exposing yourself. I'm not exposing anything. If they're playing this game exposing your personal medical records, I want to be the one that goes after them for that. Or everybody can. But see, you got to realize that your medical records are not protected even in the medical field. They go online to all law enforcement. That's the other point. If you draw over $5,000 out of your bank account, they notify the local police department to start an investigation on you for money laundering. Standard procedure. This is the one thing that people don't get. They wrote this stuff to keep you under thumbs. So that's the one thing. You don't want to be kept under thumbs. At least not me. That's why I keep following on these people. I get a lot of public employees that literally stay the heck away from me. And they know that. And I know that. So they don't want nothing to do with me. I don't want nothing to do with them, and that's what their job is supposed to do. But when you have situations where you have family and elected and public employees, especially, I live in a small little town. Pretty much everybody knows everybody, and everybody knows everybody's business because everybody talks. There's no privacy. Tell me how much privacy you got in your family. How many of those family members that know stuff and they talk to other people outside the family or other people that, even on the street corner, the grocery store? You don't know who's listening. I mean, look at all the medical devices they have out there, the sonar, the tracking devices they have everywhere. I mean, you think your phone call on your cell phone is private? Hell no. Unless you file privately in that contract that you got from the cell phone company and you certified mailed them a copy of that, you have no privacy. See, that's why I won't own a cell phone or the tracking devices. And people go, well, you need to have a cell phone. You need that. I mean, you know, my family was trying to get me a cell phone because of my medical issues. What happens if you die? Well, what happens? Who cares? Nobody's going to. If I die, that's life. Same with you. If you die, it's life. So, I've been so many times on life support and stuff, and basically, you know, nobody ever showed up to say hi to me in the hospital. So, I mean, I know that. So, I mean, and this is life we deal with. And people say, well, don't you have mental depression over that? We want to give you psychological medication to help you with it. It's like, no. Shit happens in life. Life is not a happy place. So you deal with it, you know? It's that simple. You don't get wrapped up in the games. And when people want to play games with you, walk away from them. It's that simple. Don't go back and forth to the games because, you know, once they make their point, they made their point. You know, it's like the famous thing that we always hear from people. Don't say something you'll regret. And trust me, I know that one. I've been there. Been there a few times, even in 2 relationships I was in you know, I had family members that got so involved in a relationship that really, you know, it's interesting with family. Even friends, so-called friends. So the one thing is, when you're doing with your writings and stuff, know who to talk to. Know who you're passing information on. And know who's going to sit there and at least look at things and know you're right or wrong. And if you're wrong, we need to speak up when somebody's wrong or bring them another idea. We can't tell anybody what to do because we sure ain't God or whatever people think of a God. I go by the Creator. Creator gave us life without woman and, what do they call that? What is that? Mother Earth, Creator. There's another word here. So it's like, without the father, without the mother, there's no life. So that's the point we got to look at this point, with a realistic point of view. And we know what's coming down the pike here in the future if we don't change this stuff. We already got Nazi FEMA camps already set up in this country. Right now we're living under Nazism. If people say, I'm free, prove you're free. You pay for everything. Your traveling license, you pay for permits, registration. I mean, that's the one thing. You know, I used to go and do rentals of libraries and stuff. I used to always apply for their waivers. Because I'm native. I don't have to pay that stuff. They have to write it off in their taxes. And see, it's knowing how to use the system. And we do have some good elected and public servants out there that actually comprehend this. Well, but when you got those ones, don't rock the boat with them. Just let them, you know, do what they're doing and honor what's going on. Don't bring them into the circle, per se, because you don't want to put them in jeopardy. Because if they have to fill out a conflict of interest statement, you screwed yourself. See, it's learning how not to screw ourselves and preparing ourselves to protect ourselves. And so, like I said, when I'm done tonight on the talk show, I post a lot of the ordinance, federal and state ordinance that on your property. It's like people go in foreclosure. How come you're not filing treason on these people? That's the point. You got to file. But the thing is that everybody goes, I want to take my day in court. Whose court? What court are you going into? There's only 2 legal and 1 lawful court in this country. Philadelphia is the first court system, 1789. That's the only constitutional court on this soil. since after, what is that called? The 14th Amendment passed and the Civil War. Because remember, the Civil War, like 1812, we fought the British government. World War I, World War II, we fought the British government. It's all in history books. It's all there. Yes, we know they're rewriting history books just to make it look good, to protect everybody. You know, the corporations and religion. Because everybody's religion dictates to them how their family rules and runs. So this is what we've got a whole confusion going around us. So when it comes down to your property, file your rights. I always recommend file your bloodline. People say, that doesn't matter. If you go any other country in the world, your bloodline separates you from being a peasant. And it separates you from being how you are being treated. You know it. Works in every other country. And it works here too. There's no difference. The Supreme Court even stated that. Go on to Judge Roberts' Supreme Court site. You might be amazed what you read on that, what the courts can do, what the courts don't do. But I recommend you read this stuff. Quit listening to all these YouTube videos without referencing and looking it up for yourself. I mean, I watch a lot of videos, and I always do the research on them, too. I do a lot of talk shows. I do the research on that. So without knowing the truth, how do we know the truth? It's like your Social Security number. You know, that's the whole point that people don't get. Social Security didn't become a private corporation technically until William Jefferson Clinton signed the payee structure of the employer to the Queen of England. We have it up. We put out the laws, what they did, their administrative rules. That's why everybody's panicking what Trump's doing on these president and executive orders. You know, he can't do that. He can't do that. But Obama did. Clinton did it. Nixon did it. Especially Johnson. And we can't forget, at least FDR put the structure of 2040, so we know that citizens and nationals are enemy to this country. I love these national groups out there saying, oh, Ed, you misinterpret that. It says it clearly. 2014 executive order says it clear, or 2040 executive order says it clearly. And that's what always frustrates me, how people would interpret things without reading it. That's why I always recommend a movie called Interstate 60. I recommend you watch it twice, preferably the second time with a pen and paper, and you'll pick up on a lot more things you will not catch. So, but anyhow, why don't we go ahead and open the floor, see if anybody's got any comments, and then we'll check out on that. And like I said, tonight, I will put up this structure with the state and federal stuff, excluding Oregon, dealing with property rights, the structure. But the thing is that do the research. Go to other websites. See what some of these other people wrote on how they're doing. Combine your stuff. Learn how to put it together, and put it together so it's rational, reasonable. So it doesn't come across as a threat. It comes that you are making a firm stance and knowing your rights.
Before I open up, I want to mention you were talking about Canada, and not like it's not because I want to come down here. We're just too busy doing streets and dogs and stuff up there because it's legal up there now. BCI is legal in Canada. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, whatever you want to do between two consenting living beings, that's fine. I'm pretty sure, though, I want to get the affidavit from the animal consenting.
Well, and even in the United States, they're trying to put consent to a child at 12 years old. They already got bills on the floor on this.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Look at it this way. We'll open this up real quick.
All participants are unmuted.
Look at it this way. They want to have abortion at late stages. You know? and they want to have 12-year-olds be able to have sex. Well, let's see. 12-year-old females are usually able to reproduce and get pregnant,
Mhm.
which means that 12-year-olds are not going to want to keep the kids, which
Mhm.
means more abortions, which means more money and more Planned Parenthood uh, resources that they can sell the aborted fetuses
Mhm.
to the major companies that are buying them up like crazy. I mean, just think,
And then you get all
imagine
these
how
people going,
fast.
"We need to stop abortion," but then again, you're endorsing it.
Exactly. So, all right, I'm going to shut up. We got a few people here.
Go ahead.
Ed,
Yep.
glad to see you're back on. Um, when you say file with the IRS, like let's say the electric bill or the water bill, and you say a 1099, you never finish the rest of it. Are you talking about a 1099-C or what?
1099 tax form. You paid a
Okay, but
water bill. You send it to the IRS. You want to prove that it's an. You want them to see if they claimed it as an income. If they didn't claim it as an income, that's federal fraud by the IRS code.
okay, but I looked it up and I found a whole bunch of 1099s and they got letters after them. And I'm thinking that you mean C as in Charlie.
You could use that one too. You could use the S form too, or I like the A form. Because the A form opens them up right off the bat for an audit if they don't respond.
Okay, see, I looked it up. I was researching it, but I wasn't exactly sure which form you were mentioning. But now you explained it. Yeah, I'll go with A then.
Yeah, because I mean, and that's the one thing. Even if you go into a court and they charge you 25 cents for a copy of a piece of paper, you file to see if they're claiming it in taxes.
Okay.
If everybody starts doing that more and more, could you imagine what that's going to be doing to the agencies? Because now all of a sudden they're going to have to conform.
Well, not only that, but then that means they would have to work.
But that's a concept too.
Now,
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to go on to something else, but go ahead.
Well, see, we have the paperwork, we have solutions, and we have to use it. People say, why waste the time? Well, the other point is it's there. You got it out, and you always want to do something with a criminal charge on it. They didn't do this, so I'm asking for investigation on the money. So you insert your rights. Go ahead.
I was going to say, well, not only assert our rights, but also because, I mean, since we are supposedly their bosses, wouldn't you want to know if they've, are being legitimate with what they're spending the money on? Because, I mean, the electrical company I have out here, all of a sudden is doing some new groundwork. Well, is that because they're charging more, or are they taking the money?
Well, that's one thing you need to file on them to find out how they're spending the money and where they got the grant money.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Because remember, all these projects are based on grants.
Oh, yeah, I know. And we're supposedly still paying for it because they keep saying it's we have to pay taxes. And as I've looked in Title 26, I can't find one freaking thing that says how to pay taxes, but I can find something that says that Congress is supposed to lay taxes, but it doesn't explain how they're supposed to collect it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, people need to, and you and I have talked about this, but just to remind everybody that is listening or that will listen, it was a joke I started. It went, riddle me this, riddle me that. Tell me what is a judge, a lawyer, a policeman afraid of. And it's called reading. They don't like to read. They don't even know their own structure. In fact, what was it? There was a guy who brought up about the evidence book, and he says, "Yeah, well, I've got it." And he's like, "Oh, you do?" And the lawyer didn't even know that there's an evidence book on how to handle evidence. He thought it was just, "Oh, well, we just went by rules. We just thought this was something that people just, thought out of their pockets." And the thing is these people don't know half their own stuff because they don't read. So if they're not reading, you're catching them totally off guard. That's an advantage. Also, like they said in that movie, Enemy of the State, they are big, you are small.
Right.
Move slow. You can move quick and nimble. So we can totally catch them off and totally lock them up with a lot of stuff by just reading. And the other thing I was going to bring up real quick is you are definitely on it. Right now, just before I got on, I was bogged down because my brother's calling me because he's got this power of attorney that is signed by his wife, him, and my aunt, and notarized, and also witnessed by his sister-in-law, who is a notary, who also notarized her own instrument. So now the power of attorney is not any good, but the nursing home is allowing him to use it. Now they're trying to say that I stole money, but see, the whole thing I'm trying to tell them is that I don't have a fake power of attorney. My brother said he wanted to take care of his mother, so when he signed with his own hand. He didn't sign with my mom's agreement. Plus, my mom was diagnosed in 2015 with dementia, and he got the power of attorney in 2017. There's no way any of the stuff he's doing could stand up in court.
Well, you have to get it in court and file. You can't procrastinate on it any further.
Yeah, but the thing is that Adult Protective Services, I think, would end up being like Child Protective Services. Lies upon lies to make it work.
Oh, I know that. But that's what families do, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, when it's involving definitely money, you're nailing it because that's all it is. Nothing but greed. He wants this, he wants that, and he can make it happen because he's got the power of attorney.
Well, I know. I've always had fun for the last several years. I got my own family going, well, you need to sign power of attorney over to us. We'll take care of you. They've already seen how they take care of the other elders in the family. The one thing is you never want to sign your rights away. The minute you do that, you're fucked.
And they're going to turn around and make you sound like you're a total imbecile. And they'll
they do that, yeah.
They'll screw you 100 ways from Sunday.
And then you'll hear this, well, why did you sign your rights away then?
Yeah.
I've been through that one with my own family. So.
Yeah, and they tell me, I've been told by my next door neighbors and my brother, you don't want to play by the game in the real world. This is how the game is played. You have to pay your taxes. I make $200,000 a year for everything. And like you were just saying, I was laughing silently because you're right. He's living from check to check, paying all these bills, but that's how he's measuring his worth. He says he makes $200,000, and I'm a friggin' moron and an idiot, and he can beat me in court any way he can. And I was like, yeah, well, whatever. But see, he's stressing because I'm still getting all the information about my mom, and he doesn't have it, and they've been asking for it, and I haven't gotten anything yet in the mail, but he's stressing about it because he needs it filled out. And I'm like, well, you got the power of attorney, go get it. I can't now. I got to go back to work. Well,
so in other words, sounds like he might have committed fraud somewhere along the line. He's trying to cover his ass.
That's what I'm saying. And they said, well, we didn't fill out the paperwork last year, We don't know what happened, but this year they're wanting all this information. We need to know what you put down. I said, I'm not telling you a daggum thing because who filled it out last year?
Right. Not my signature, not my problem.
Yeah, and so, I mean, now I'm seeing a lot of this, and I'm being very careful about what I say and what I do. He's got a fake power of attorney. If the Legend Oaks is going to, the nursing home, going to listen to him about it, then can think that they're not going to listen to me. I keep trying to tell them, they just refuse to listen. So anyway, I yield.
Yeah. Anybody else would like to bring something up? Okay. Like I said, I'll be posting some of this stuff up on the wall. And then next time I get on, I'm going to be posting it up. And then we'll get into the conversation of how it works. So you have to read this stuff. Know it. So that's the one thing I would suggest to people. You can't know something unless you know it. Most want to claim they know something, but most people don't even have a clue what they're talking about when it really comes down to it. I mean, when I talk to, when I talk to some of these doctors, I know all about the birth certificate. And then when you send them the information, they go, what's this? I thought you said you knew it. And then they go, oh, shit. So the one thing is, if you have a child, you want to make sure you file with the hospital before you have the child, so you own the child. You want to take your property home. That's the one thing. If you don't file your bloodline, people go, well, what the hell does that matter? Well, you got to know who you are. Remember, we're shipping out people in this country. There's already been 1 million people shipped out. They're scheduling for another 5 million to be shipped out in the next 8 months. And all these newspapers and the American Civil Liberties Union are whining to the media, they're shipping out this and breaking families up. They ain't breaking up families. Those families had no right to be in this country. So knowing what the right is, you don't have a right to come into somebody else's house and tell them how they live. And that's what these men and women from foreign countries are coming here dictating to us their religion. Oh, the First Amendment says we have a right to free speech. You do, in your home. That's it. Doesn't mean that you have a right for your religion to supersede my religion. Absolutely not. Your religion is not better than my religion. It's simple. And the only religion I go by is the treaties and the Constitution. I ain't going to go by a fairy tale book because man wrote the book. When you're out hunting in the woods, man didn't write the book on how to hunt and fish. You learn how to do that. There's books out there that might give you suggestions, but I've hunted and fished and go out and collect food and mushrooms and, a whole bunch of food resources. But I went out and learned it. Paid attention. Learned what others were doing. So, and that's the only way we learn is by each other when it really comes down to it. So, protect your bloodline. Learn how to protect your children. And that's the one thing. If you don't claim your children as property, you don't have property. You don't want to claim them on a tax write-off. Because the minute you start writing off your children on a tax write-off, the state owns them now. See, they got all these gimmicks of how to take your rights away from you. All these gimmicks, but standing up, people go, well, that doesn't affect that one. If I pay taxes and I write it off over here and I do that, doesn't affect my kids because they already have paperwork filed that says they're my child. Well, you're not your child because you're saying you use a tax write-off, you're doing this, you're that. So you're giving your rights back over to them. So you can't sit there and think you have half rights. Either you have a right or you don't. So, I mean, it really comes down to it. And that's how simple the real world works. It's a shame people don't get the real world. So anybody else would like to speak up? Well, with that, we'll just say, may the Great Spirit bless you. May the Creator and Mother Earth protect you and keep you fed and warm. And until next time, have a good week.